Hello and welcome. I am the Restless Kaiser and we are modelling for advantage. So today we're just going to bring you a little bit of an update on the army, the progress we've made towards playing Black Powder. It's a new game system for us that we've not played before. And I made the fatal mistake of buying some Kallistra at Salute a couple of years ago. And at the point when I was just about ready to start playing, Warlord have released their epic figures, which are very similar in size, but very different in the way the units are composed. Johnny B has done some spinny do-for stuff for me. I don't know whether it's that side, it's that side. It's going to go on the side. We're going to see what we're going on. So I'm just going to show you the units and talk maybe just a little bit about them. So the first thing to talk about is the Infantry regiment itself. Black Powder is a fairly open-ended system, and I can't decide whether I want 3, 4, or 6 bases to a regiment. And there's two parts of the thinking. One is the more bases there are to the regiment, there's significantly more painting to do. That is undeniably the case. And I think that the 6 base unit does look better. I think that's very true. But obviously, the more miniatures there are, the longer it takes. I mean, if I have a 3 base regiment, then I'm done in half the time. So you can see some alternatives in there about the 3, 4, or 6 base regiment. The problem with the 4 base regiment and the 3 base regiment, why I'm less keen on them, is about how you deploy the formations. In the 3 base regiment, if you're in column of attack, you're supposed to be a little bit wider. So what you end up doing, I shouldn't have put these away, is you end up having 2 regiments at the front, 2 bases at the front and 1 behind, which is just really weird. With your 4 base regiment, you've got all your formations covered. You've got your column of march with your 4x1, you've got your column of attack with your 4x2, and you've got your line with your 1x4. The downside is, your flag's never in the middle. And it's only when you go up to the 6 bases that you get the 3 options for the standard formations and keep the flag in the middle. Now, I'm not sure at this stage how much extra painting I'm prepared to do just for the sake of having the flags in the middle. But across the whole table, obviously, it is going to make quite a visual difference if all the flags are all on the left or all on the right or whatever. So I'm not so sure about that. So we've got Union, we've got Confederate there. And we've got, if we use 3 base regiments, we've got 6 regiments there, which I think is a playable game. It's doable. You'll see from the painting, I've done a very, very basic paint job on these. The idea with this kind of force is it's about how it looks en masse. It's not about how an individual soldier looks. Some of that, I started painting with some of the Confederates doing the beards and things like that, and I was just like, why am I doing this? You can't see these. You know, it's the flags that really make the difference more than anything else. They're mostly mixed and grey, and these are all blue. I made a deliberate effort to use, although my Confederates are mostly grey, to have, especially with the hats and things, to mix them up, whereas the Union have got a very uniform look. It's a really distinctive thing about the two armies and about the nature of mass production. The Confederate guys are all kind of ragtag. Not just because they're veterans, but because they just don't have these huge mass production factories that are producing uniforms on the scale that they need them. Whereas the Union has got production on its side, but perhaps not capability in the early war. Have a look at the skirmishers then. So I'm still using the Kallistra bases. I ended up putting 3 to a base. So they're nicely spaced out. So again, I've got 4 bases of those, which I think will do in each case. And I just think they provide sort of a different visual look on the field. In American Civil War, I'm not quite sure so much how big a deal skirmish lines are. Very much in the 18th century warfare, there are thick skirmishing lines ahead of the main battle line, and we know about, you know, from Sharpe and so forth into the Napoleonic Wars, skirmishing is a big part of the fight for the centre ground on the battlefield, as well as the flanks and edges. In the American Civil War, I don't know so much. I don't know the degree to which battalions and regiments, and I think it's regiments we talk about in the American Civil War rather than battalions, how much they do advance deploy skirmishers from every unit, and if every unit does it need to be depicted on this scale? You know, those are still questions that I have. Be interested to know in the comments whether people have views. because I've never been comfortable with some Napoleonic systems where you do advance deploy skirmishers in front of the battalion, that the battalion shoots through them. Or when the battalion gets shot at, the skirmishers somehow provide some sort of cover. You have to shoot the skirmishers instead. So the only cover that those skirmishers are providing is their own body between you and the musket. That's not cover. That's just a different guy is dead, right? Maybe that's to simulate the disruption that they cause. I don't know. Anyway, that's the infantry. Got a couple of guns painted. So again, this is my kind of lack of knowledge of the American Civil War period. The sculpts of these are quite nice. You got, I think, 3 different sculpts from Kallistra on the base. I think there was a 4th crewman was provided, but I just didn't feel he fitted very well and allowed the gun to be positioned. I need to do a little bit more work. Their guns are just black at the moment because I'm not sure what colours they were, and I'm not sure how different they are. I'm aware that the Union would tend to have much more in the way of more modern rifled artillery, and the Confederates had much more of the traditional smoothbore artillery because of the productivity issues and manufacturing. But they presume, did they repaint the guns during the war, or do they all have their original colours? Not sure. Then we come down to the commanders. So far, I've just painted a couple of brigadiers for each. So these are just from the command packs. They're not special figures. They're just from the Kallistra command figures. What I was looking for here, I think, to distinguish the different levels of command in the game, I think I'm going to have, because they're all Americans, 1 figure on a base for each star that the general has. So your brigadiers are on their own. Your 2-star commander has got 2 figures with him. Whatever. So I do need to make some C&C figures for those guys. And finally, John didn't get round to doing the spinning of the cavalry, because you see it was in the 3rd layer of the box. You know, that was just too complicated. So these are on the same size bases that the artillery come with. These are 40 by 30, I think they are. I put 3 figures to a base on these because I think it looks about right. And again, I've gone for a frontage of 3 for the regiment, and that gives it the same frontage that I'm expecting to have with the regiment in line at that point. That does mean that there's only 9 models in a cavalry regiment compared with 24 in an infantry regiment. It maybe doesn't look, in terms of the number of models available, is it as powerful as you would want it? Maybe I should have them in 2 ranks again. But again, the other point about the size of the units is we tend to play on a 4x4 foot board. The board's going to get quite full quite quickly. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. But we're just about ready to start doing, and between the 2 lockdowns, we did play with some of this and have a little bit of a go. It looks like a fairly fast play system. And I'm hoping that a kind of 6 to 10 regiment game might be quite interesting. We shall have to see. The last thing, speaking of Warlord Epic, I can't remember where I got my original flags from, and I'm really sorry. If I remember where it was, I will put a link down in the doofer. But I did get hold of some of the Warlord Epic stuff, and they came with flag sheets. So these, there's much more variety on here. Mine got a little bit damaged in the box, but it was a huge box with a lot of stuff. You've even got Zouave regiments on here. Really nice. And that's probably the one unit that I'm missing. Zouaves, giving you those really distinctive uniforms with the bright pantaloons and so forth. I think there was, the Louisiana Tigers, I think, were a very famous Zouave regiment. I don't know whether these are specific. It is from the Gettysburg set, and I don't know whether this is specifically for the regiments at Gettysburg, but you do have a nice range of the different era Confederate flags on here by the looks of things. The battle flag, and so forth. The Confederate national flag changed several times, but the battle flag was fairly consistent. And then the unit flags for the Union. Again, I'm not sure which of these regiments where they're from. I did start looking at some orders of battle for the American Civil War, and it was quite interesting to see of the southern states, you seem to see the same state appear and be really disproportionately present in the armies. And when I started to look into this, it's like all of these guys seem to be coming from the same few states. So what was difficult to realise today, looking backwards, is how sparsely populated a lot of these southern and southwestern states of America were at the time. Places like California are an incredibly large population at the moment, or even Texas. That was not the case back in the 1860s. And you find a lot of the regiments are actually coming from places like Virginia. although a big part of the territory of the United States was part of the secession, the Confederacy, most of the population was in the Union. Anyway, that was a quick look at our army. I hope you found this useful. We're really looking forward to getting some black powder on the table. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.